Hey, welcome back to PewTube. Today we're going to be talking about shotguns. Now, when you're dealing with live theater or film, we have some challenges with shotguns because there really isn't anybody making a blank firing, realistic replica modern shotgun. Now we've got some options, and I can do some particular product highlights in future episodes about some of our standard options, the Denix Coach gun and some of the Airsoft ones and things. But today I want to specifically focus on sound. Now, sound design is such a huge part of doing our fight scenes, and one of the things that everybody really wants with a shotgun is that unmistakable sound of a pump action being racked. Right? Now, frankly, it gets overused a little bit in movies. People do that so many times that they would have completely emptied out all of their ammunition by the time they get around to actually firing anything. So it's a little overused, but it's such an iconic sound. A couple of quick anecdotes on that. I remember when I was taking the civilian, what do they call it? The Community Police Academy. It's an 8-week course that the Seattle Police Academy, Seattle Police Department offered. A lot of police departments offer this as sort of a community relations thing. The SWAT guy was talking about an anecdote where there was somebody who was holed up in a house, and there were rifle rounds and pistol rounds going back and forth, and then they busted out some shotguns, and the guy came out with his hands up, and they were like, so why'd you finally turn yourself in? And he's like, a pistol or a rifle, that bullet may or may not have your name on it that day, but that shotgun, when you hear that, that's just addressed to whom it may concern. And everybody knows what that sound means. Another quick anecdote, a friend of mine in high school whose parents used to run a video store, that dates me, I suppose, back when they would run credit cards with those little mechanical swipe things that would use the carbon paper and kind of slide across, which also probably dates me, I suppose. Someone broke into the store at one point, and they had one of those things, and it was at nighttime, and they just kind of stood around the corner, and they racked it, and it sounded close enough to that sound that the thieves just booked it and ran off. Everybody knows that sound. It's so iconic. So this is one of the joys of pump shotguns, is being able to do that. Of course, the other joy is you don't have to modify a real shotgun to be able to fire blanks. So this is a real Remington 870 that I've already used in a couple of different movies. These are such common firearms. You can swap out the hardware. This was originally my dad's duck gun. I've got wooden hardware. I've got this folding stock. I've got other parts for it. But what everybody loves it for is not just the ability to fire full gauge 12 gauge blanks, which are really loud, trust me. Shooting, I think it was clutch with this folding stock on it, actually. Had a plastic face on a clock on a wall of this warehouse 30-some feet behind and above the actor. Fires a 12 gauge blank, and that plastic faceplate just falls off the wall like 30 feet back, just from the sound wave, that impact of the sound wave. Those 12 gauge blanks can be really loud. But we all love that sound. And the problem is that without something that's mechanically made to cycle around and is solid steel, you don't quite get that same sound. So let's take a look at a couple of options here that might come close, and I'll let you decide what do you think would work for your production. So first up, this is a replica Remington 870 from Classic Army Airsoft. This is an Airsoft version. It does not eject casings or anything like that, but it's actually pretty decent similarities, pretty decent replica of Remington 870. If you put the extended tube and the wood furniture on it, this will pretty closely match what I've got. It doesn't have trademarks or anything, but it'll hold up for most things. Now the real question though is, what does it sound like when you pump it? Now the functions are pretty much exactly the same, so you can't rack it more than once without firing it or holding down this little release here. Oh, the release doesn't even work on this one. Gotta fire it. But it's just not a satisfying sound, I was working on, I think it was Urban World, one of the first features I did with guns back in Seattle, and we were using a cheap plastic airsoft, and they just never folded it in. It was so disappointing when I saw the film, and they had just kept that kind of plasticky sound. We'll go back and forth, just not the same. Looks good, doesn't sound quite right. I was a little disappointed. I had hoped that this being steel parts, it would sound decent, but Yeah, not so much. So while we're at it, another pump action Airsoft, non-shell ejecting. Again, these are made to use magazines. So metal parts, decent heft to it. It's got a fair amount of realism, this time in more of a tactical style, but let's see what the sound is. Let's see if this works. Nope. Again, the release here doesn't work. Still not quite as satisfying, is it? It's still got that kind of hollow plasticky. It's got something, but it's not really, it's not great. The other thing which is fairly distinctive to Airsoft is this little cutout here and what would be the slide, and of course when it does go, that part doesn't move the way it would on a real one. So again, it's got a decent amount of heft. It looks fairly realistic, but it just doesn't sound right. For movies you can always Foley that in, but for live theater, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to rack it too much. So then a natural thing to ask yourself is, well, what if what's making the sound is actually the action of cycling around through? So let's look at some shell ejecting models and see if that actually plays out. Up first here we have a Maruzen Wingmaster 870. Again, this is a Remington 870 replica, in this case with the black polymer furniture, which again, I could dress the real one up to look like it. The shells this one uses are a little bit smaller than 12 gauge, and they really only come in blue, which is unfortunate because this is kind of our standard non-gun sort of replica color. You could paint them, it's going to flake off. But, the nice thing is you can actually load these casings like you would with a real one and cycle them through. Sounds a little better. You do have some of the same rhythm, I guess, because it's doing mechanically the same action that a real one would. But it doesn't have the same weight to it, right? It's just not quite the same. Now this one does function a little more. You have the same little release here by the trigger guard, which will let you rack it without firing it in between, if you want to. It's definitely an improvement over the non-shell ejecting models in terms of sound, but it's still not quite the same. Now, up next in our sound of a pump-action shotgun competition is the APS CAM870. Now, there's a few things I like about this one. This is, frankly, the most expensive of the replicas we're going to be looking at today. And honestly, I can buy a used Remington 870, a real one, for cheaper than I can this. On the other hand, this I can use in schools and other places where you're not allowed to use real firearms. These are pretty high-end replicas. You can get different furniture for them. I do have a polymer pistol grip and forend set for it, so we can kind of mix it around. The last thing I used this for was the Big Heartless, where the character is a bit more of a woodsman, mountain man. He's works for the Wildlife Service, so the wood furniture fit just fine for that, and it's got sling mounts and all. I do like that the shells are a little bit more realistic on this one. In fact, you can get little paper covers for them. These are super realistic in terms of function. The shells themselves, you load the gas in each individual shell, you load some pellets, there's little paper caps you put in the front of it, which does potentially open up options for things like putting some baby powder and capping it off so that you get a little bit of a smoke effect or things like that. But the casings do look a lot more realistic than they do for the Maruzen with the slightly downsized blue ones. So I do like the look of these a lot better. This one does have the extended tube, so it can hold a little bit more. Yeah, it's sticking right now. Let's see, why is that sticking? There we go, that's better. All right, now as for the sound, I'll let you decide for yourself. Obviously the firing isn't going to sound right, but in terms of the racking itself, it's not bad, it's still not quite there. It's a little bit hollow sounding to me, still a little lightweight, and it's missing a beat. Rhythmically, there's a difference between the ka-chack-chack of a actual 12 gauge. There's a couple of little beats in the middle there that this just doesn't have. Not quite there still. And another note about these, because the shells themselves do hold the gas, these things are really freaking expensive, so you gotta take care of these and watch out for them. I did, as an experiment, last time I was using this in a show, try 3D printing one of these, because I found that Thingiverse had a template for 3D printing these out. Unfortunately, the plastic that I was able to print it in at the maker space that I had access to was not quite strong enough, so the lip broke on the second or third time I was chambering them through. Just, you know, on the actual rounds, these are aluminum, so it's got a little more durability. It's possible that if you printed it in something else, it might hold up. I don't know. And finally, this is a more recent acquisition for Fight Designer LLC. I've been wondering about these for a while. This is a PPS Airsoft shell ejecting shotgun. Now, these are a little bit cheaper than the APS, so I'll admit I've been a little skeptical. But it's a very similar setup. You know, you've got these replica shells, which can be found in a variety of finishes, including aluminum or this orange plastic or clear plastic, things like that. Similar function. Once again, based off the Remington 870, also available in a variety of finishes. This particular one with a folding and telescoping AR style stock and some quick detach mounts here. I'll let you decide how you think about the sound. Now, to my money, this one's actually the closest to the real deal. Let's try them back to back. Pretty close. Not quite there, but pretty close. So, my conclusion, you know, honestly, I think for sound, this is probably the closest we're going to get outside of a real one for now. I do like its functionality, you know, working safety. It's got that shell ejecting feature, some decent looking shells, a few different finishes available. You know, this particular one I don't have any other stocks for yet. I might try and pick up some more traditional looking stocks for this, just so I have some other options, because again, I do tend to like the sound of this a little bit better. And again, this does have the quick detach sling mounts, which are kind of nice. You know, you have the option of, you could even just take this stock off and it's not going to affect the function. Or you can fold this out. Really stiff though. Let's see. There we go. Telescope it to your own preference in terms of length. That's a little too long. Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, it's pretty good. And I would imagine that this is pretty similar proportion. I might even be able to stick this same kind of, let's see. That's pretty darn close. I might be able to even use this same kind of scope mount on the PPS that I have on my real one. Pretty darn similar. You know, and if I needed to be able to double them so that I could have fire full 12 gauge blanks, or if I need to do some point blank shots safely, I could double out for the gas airsoft shell ejecting one. I can get stocks for my real shotgun that'll be pretty similar to this, or the other way around. I can probably swap out some real 870 furniture or other styles on this PPS. Trademarks are pretty similar. I mean, it's not the full Remington 870. It does say Model 870 Police Magnum, which is close enough that if anybody sees it, they'll probably think it's good enough. And it's metal in the parts where it needs to be to get a decent sound. Same kind of sling mounts and bead and all that. So, for my money, if we're working on film, honestly, I'll probably try and use a real one if I can. If we've got to fire anything, I'll use the real one, and if I need to double it, I'll try and find a way that I can swap out for rubbers or airsoft for a particular shot if I have to. And we, you know, of course, for film, we can Foley in the sound. For live theater, you're less likely to be able to get a real firearm for insurance reasons, for actor safety reasons, and just not just actual safety, but the feeling of safety. Replicas are going to be much more easy to get approved for theatrical productions. So if you need sound and you can't Foley it in or dub it in, probably one of these shell ejecting models is going to be better. And right now, I'd say this is probably top of the line. The APS would be my second choice, or the Maruzen. They're all pretty much in the same boat, but this one's maybe got a slight edge on the others. Some of the others still have plastic receivers. This one's got, I believe, an aluminum receiver. I think, hard to tell. Whereas I know the APS is a polymer receiver, but you can get metal bodies for it. It just costs more. The Maruzen, I believe, is a polymer receiver as well. So, we do what we can. I think it's good to have options. And now you've got a little bit more ability to make an informed choice. So that's what it's all about. Any of these are for rent through Fight Designer LLC within reason. I'm not just going to ship off a real shotgun and trust you not to do anything too stupid, especially if I don't know you. But any of these replicas are up for grabs, provided you can, of course, cover the deposit and rental fees. So, as always, remember to play safe, look good, and if you have any questions, subscribe, email, comment, all that's good. I love hearing from people and getting requests. If there's something else you want to know about, just let me know. Until next time, thank you.